2 months after leaving the Catholic Church and my priesthood, I found myself in Guadalajara, Mexico, trying to survive. I began a new chapter of my life, and because of my formation within religion, that wasn't enough. There was so much going on within me, within my spirit, that I needed to express it. I needed to process it. Something that I always came back to in my life was art. Whenever I needed a moment away from everything, it would take me away from the world, take me away from my problems. And that's the urge that I felt 4 years ago. I began with one painting, and then the next, and then the next. And I realized that I was creating a collection based on the 7 deadly sins and the 4 principal virtues. I created this 11-piece collection for myself. It wasn't until later on that I realized that maybe this is something that I could give to other people. So I present to you why art saved my life. I was angry. Probably a better word is frustrated. It was like the momentum of my whole life had been suddenly halted, and I had to adapt myself to this new life, this new world that was around me. It didn't seem fair that I had to start over. I felt like I had wasted 7 years of my life in the seminary. And here I was, trying to survive, trying to start over, trying to make a buck. But I wanted to find something that gave meaning to this new chapter of my life. I didn't know if I was going to be able to find it. I picked up the paintbrush and began to spill my heart on the canvas. Never did I regret my decision to leave the church. I could see where I lacked faith and devotion, or even perseverance in some ways. But I knew that I was just human. I believed that God wasn't as harsh as those men who claimed the title of Father, my superiors. I no longer rested upon others to be there for me, to save me. I had to save myself, and I did. I bought these paints, the paintbrushes, the canvases, with the hard-earned money from my English classes, and now I was creating something. There wasn't a moment when I wasn't focused on my new life, on survival, on thriving, and I couldn't spend 1 second feeling sorry for myself. I couldn't just wallow in my victimhood. Those superiors made sure to point out all that I did wrong, that I apparently didn't have any motivation. If only they actually listened to me. I wasn't inactive. I was paralyzed. I wasn't lazy. I was just physically and mentally unable to continue on as I had done before. It was the moment to pick up what little I had and move on, continue on. It was a heavy burden to carry alone, and at times I felt like I wasn't able to. I sought the help of others, especially my psychiatrist. I asked for similar help when I was still within my old congregation. My superiors promised that they would find a psychiatrist. Months passed and nothing changed. No one was found. Now that I was in the position to save myself, to act for myself, that was one of the first decisions that I made. I needed to find professional help. The only other option was death, and I wasn't yet prepared to make that choice. Although I had been dealt a difficult hand, I had to persevere. I had to try and make a go at it. Although one of my top priorities was to make money, I had to survive. I decided to paint because it was something that I could do. I knew how to do. I wasn't planning on making a whole collection, just like I wasn't planning on writing a book, but it was a necessity. While I was painting, I would pass hours without any sort of technology, maybe some music in the background, where I could sit and think. For so long, I had spent hours each day in silence with God, and my heart yearned for those moments of recollection. I didn't have many things. I don't have many material things because I know that that's not going to make me stable in my life. That's not going to bring me happiness. For so long, I had looked at my fellow priests or seminarians, trying to figure out what type of person I needed to be. I wanted to be the best that I could be, not for myself, but for God. There was always this sense of looking up, feeling insufficient, wanting to be different. When I left, I was set adrift. I was alone, but I pushed myself to be alone. For the first time in my life, I wasn't looking at others. I wasn't comparing myself to others. I wasn't only seeing those aspects of myself that made me shudder or made me hate myself. I was looking at me as I am, imperfections and all. In my new life, I was surrounded by people. I began to form a sort of friend group, but it was always difficult to relate to them. My experience in life is so different from many others. I was searching for a way to express myself, what would end up being the YouTube channel that I now have, and the Instagram and Facebook. And my book began a few months after leaving with a few strokes of oil paint. I never planned to just throw away everything that I had learned from my religious past. I wanted it to come with me and evolve into this new chapter. I did have to reassess what I did believe. With God no longer as my moving principle, I was pulled in so many directions by contrasting currents, but my life continued on very similarly. I didn't go out to bars. I didn't just hook up with random guys. I didn't want to fill my soul with meaningless and momentary goods. I already knew that that wasn't going to make me happy, and it wasn't the moment to indulge. It was the moment to process, to reflect, and that's what I did while I was painting. Anxiety had become such a prominent part of my life. Added on to that was the fear of making another huge mistake, that I preferred to be enclosed within my room, a place that I knew that I was safe. I would rather be there painting all day than go out and meet new people or go on dates or even be with my friends. I did go out sometimes. I did meet new people sometimes, but with all that had happened to me, human trust and human contact was something that was difficult. I was so afraid of being fucked over that I didn't want to put myself in a vulnerable position. At the slightest pushback from anyone, I would retreat. I would rather cut it off in the beginning and lose a possible friend or contact. Looking back, it seemed like I was a glutton for pain. If it wasn't easy, if I wasn't suffering, then it seemed like it was a fruitless endeavor. The more difficult, the more I thought that it was God's will. After the crisis that I experienced before leaving the church, I had reached a moment when being in pain and suffering was pointless. There was no reason to continue. I left in order to find peace again. And although the circumstances in my life, especially the ones the year following my departure from religion, were the most difficult that I'd ever experienced in my life, inside, I knew that I was where I should be. After a year working on this art collection, it was time for me to share my art with the world. I looked for a gallery in order to expose not only my art, but also my soul. After months of looking for a gallery, through a friend, I was put into contact with the owner, a gay man who was about to open a new gallery. After seeing my artwork, he told me that he would be honored to have my art as the principal art. In a few weeks would be the grand opening, where there would be other artists, other gallery owners, members of the art community. It was my way in, and maybe I could start to make this some sort of profession. I was excited. My psychologist also told me that this would be a good opportunity. In the course of the night, I would be given the chance to speak to all of the strangers about my collection. In public, for the first time, I could tell everyone a little bit about my story. And seeing their reactions and seeing my own reactions, it was kind of a good test before making the full leap on social media and my book. Not only did I spend the little money that I had on the materials for the collection, which I was happy to do, but I also splurged a little bit and bought new clothes. Actually, this is the shirt that I bought for the opening night. And I made my own business cards. I think I made maybe 300 business cards, hoping for the best. And I invited my psychologist and her family to come, some friends. I wanted this to be a special night. And I also spent some time preparing the speech that I would give. With so many sermons that I had given as a priest, I was more nervous about this speech, but I wasn't ready for what was about to happen. The grand opening ended up being the family and close friends of the owner. Everyone had to buy their own dinner and any sort of alcoholic drinks. Not only was I the only artist there with any sort of artwork displayed, but there was no mention from the owner about the art. The key performance of the night was done by a drag queen. After an hour and a half of listening to this drag queen who was a friend of the owner, it was the end of the night. Everyone had finished eating, they were restless, it was time to go. And I still needed to make my speech. I think before, I would have seen what was happening, seeing the families making their way to the front door. I would have said, this is God's will. I must decrease. I must not stand up for myself, even though I spent so much time and money preparing for this one night. No, I must be silent and suffer in silence. In this new chapter of my life, Francis went up to the owner, said, "Hi, it's my time to talk. Where's the microphone?" He gave me the microphone and I stood up on the same stage where the drag queen had just been and began to thank everyone for coming, thank the owner for allowing me to have my art displayed. And then I began to explain the story, explain my story. As I started getting closer and closer to the moment when I would tell everyone I used to be a priest, I started to notice that people were looking to the side. They weren't looking at me directly, and I would say something that was not funny, and they would begin to laugh. I looked, and the drag queen had come out from backstage and was now on the side making fun of me. he was looking at me like he was looking at a movie star with dreamy eyes. And he began to say things like, "How old are you? What are you going to do tonight?" And everyone was laughing, but I continued to talk. I continued to tell everyone that I used to be a priest, that these paintings mean everything to me, and people were not looking. They weren't paying attention. I only saw my psychologist and her husband and daughter looking at me. After thanking everyone again, I left. The only other part of this story, which is somewhat interesting, is the fact that this person was a fraud, this owner. I went to go pick up my paintings, and he had taken them off of the wall himself, stacked them on top of each other without anything in between on the floor. I had bought special cloth to put in between the paintings and transport them from my apartment. After seeing all of that, how much devotion I had to these paintings, he just threw it on the floor. And you know what? It was a good preparation for me. No one will understand what I went through. No one will be able to see the details and care for the details like I do. And it doesn't matter, because I was the one who went through hour after hour after hour working on these paintings, and it helped me. It helped me process a lot of what I was going through. I have 9 of the paintings. People don't want to buy them, and that's okay, because maybe the purpose of this collection was for me to make it through that first year after leaving without having these paintings, without being able to express myself in art. What would have happened? Thank you for listening to me in another video. If you would like to help support, I would appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel, if you give a like to the video, and most importantly, if you share the video and tell other people about it. I have many other videos, and especially ones that kind of flesh out some of the details that maybe you're missing if you only see this video. If you would like to monetarily support me, I have a page which is kind of like a Patreon. It's called Ko-fi, and basically you just go make a donation. We can talk a little bit. There's special content there if you are interested, but the main thing is to help support the project that I'm trying to do. But I'm just really happy to be able to be here today and share this story with you. And every time that I make a video and share anything from my past, I'm just happy to be able to do this and to be on the other side. And this is how art saved my life. Have a wonderful day.